Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a hidden, microscopic world that is literally all around us, but entirely invisible to the naked eye. We're going to demystify plant cells by looking at what they truly are: highly efficient, bustling, microscopic factories. I mean, what happens inside a single blade of grass or a giant oak tree is just an absolute marvel of biological engineering. So, let's get into it. But right off the bat, let me ask you a question. Take a second and really think about this. How big do you think a single cell actually is? And if you had to draw one right now, could you describe what it looks like? It's kind of funny, right? We hear the word cell all the time, but we rarely pause to visualize the actual physical reality of these structures. Our everyday assumptions about size and shape totally break down when we start talking about the fundamental building blocks of life. Because here is the wild truth. Every single living organism, including every plant you have ever seen, is made up of these units called cells. If you were to take a leaf and look at it under a really powerful microscope, you'd see that it's basically composed of thousands of tiny interconnected boxes. They operate on a staggering microscopic scale, so much so that you simply cannot see them with your eyes alone. A plant isn't just one solid object. It's a meticulously organized collection of thousands, millions, or even billions of these tiny compartments. Okay, let's dive into the blueprint of this operation. When we map an actual microscopic view to a structural diagram, that factory analogy really comes to life. Instead of thinking of a plant cell as just some abstract biological term, imagine it as a highly optimized production loop. It has specific departments, structural walls, power generators, and a central command. So let's break these parts down one by one. First up, every factory needs a sturdy exterior, right? For the plant cell, that is the cell wall. It's made of a super rigid substance called cellulose, and it acts exactly like a security fence or architectural scaffolding. Its main job is to firmly hold the cell's shape. Without this tough cellulose wall, plants literally wouldn't be able to stand tall and reach for the sunlight. Now, just inside that tough outer wall is something much, much more delicate: the cell membrane. You can picture it a bit like the thin skin of a soap bubble, pressed gently right up against the inside of the cell wall. But do not underestimate it. The cell membrane is the strict gatekeeper of our factory. It actively controls exactly what gets to come inside and what waste products get pumped back out. Once you pass through the gatekeeper, you step right onto the factory floor, the cytoplasm. This is a clear, jelly-like substance that fills the inside of the cell. But it is definitely not empty space. This jelly is where countless, continuous chemical reactions take place. These complex reactions are literally the sparks of life. They're the optimized processes that keep the whole cell functioning, healthy, and alive. Of course, you can't have a factory operating in total chaos. You need a boss. For the plant cell, that central command center is the nucleus. It holds the essential instructions and coordinates that massive amount of chemical activity happening out on the cytoplasm floor. Basically, the nucleus controls absolutely all of the activities of the cell. It's the undisputed brain of the microscopic operation. Taking up a huge amount of space inside the factory is the sap vacuole. Think of this massive fluid-filled space as the cell's internal storage tank. It's filled with a liquid called cell sap, which is essentially just a solution of sugars and other substances dissolved in water. It's a crucial reservoir for the plant's resources and helps keep the whole cell inflated and structural. Then we have my personal favorites, the chloroplasts. These are truly the marvels of the plant world. Scattered around the cell, these green structures act exactly like the factory's solar panels. They get their green color from a specialized pigment called chlorophyll. When the plant sits in the sun, these chloroplasts capture that light energy and use it to manufacture food. That's a defining feature of plant cells. They literally produce their own sustenance from scratch. Finally, to round out the tour, we've got the mitochondria. Now, the chloroplasts might make the food, but the cell still needs a way to unlock the energy stored inside that food. Enter the mitochondria. These are the essential power generators. Inside them, chemical energy is released from those food nutrients, providing the power the cell, and ultimately the whole plant, needs to survive and thrive. So we've mapped out all the amazing parts of this microscopic factory. But that brings us to a really practical question. How do we actually figure all this out? I mean, we know these parts exist, but if they're literally too small to see with the naked eye, how do scientists actually study them? Well, one of the absolute best ways to grasp this complex 3D architecture is to build a macro-scale model. Scientists and students do this all the time. You can use everyday objects, transparent plastic boxes for that tough cellulose wall, green peas for the chloroplasts, and maybe small plastic bags filled with water for the giant sap vacuole. It perfectly translates a flat blueprint into a tangible, three-dimensional space you can actually hold in your hands. But here's the crucial thing you have to remember about scientific models. While they are fantastic for visualizing spatial relationships, they have serious limitations. Sure, a plastic box and green peas show you where the nucleus sits relative to the vacuole, but the scale is usually completely wrong. A real cell membrane is way, way thinner than plastic wrap. Plus, a static physical model can't show you those vibrant chemical reactions constantly buzzing away in the cytoplasm jelly. Recognizing both the strengths and the limitations of these models is just a massive part of thinking like a real scientist. So, to bridge that gap from models to actual observation, we need the ultimate tool, the light microscope. By using objective lenses and precise focus knobs, we move away from theory and into actual, hands-on discovery. The microscope isn't just lab equipment, it's the critical lens we use to verify everything we just learned about plant cell architecture. And preparing a real plant cell sample is quite the process. Take an onion, for example. First, you carefully cut a 1 centimeter piece, always keeping the blade pointing away from you, safety first. Then you peel off this ultra-thin, single-cell thick inside layer. You lay it perfectly flat into a tiny drop of water on a glass slide, and gently lower a delicate cover slip over it to avoid trapping any air bubbles. Then you focus the microscope, always starting with the smallest lens. It's meticulous, but it's the only way to put our microscopic factory on stage. When those tiny, brick-like cells finally snap into sharp focus, you are looking directly at the foundational boxes of life. It's absolutely incredible. But seeing this factory in action leaves us with an amazing question to ponder for next time. We know chloroplasts are the solar panels, but why exactly are they green? And what specific chemical magic happens inside them when that sunlight hits? Think about that.